In this episode, a Champion of the Hill game for some fun with your viewers. Where the victor will fight to become the Champion of the Hill. Hello and welcome to Streamer Bot Bites, where I cover how to set up and to make the most of the awesome Streamer bot. There is one video per topic to make it easy as possible to follow and find. When relevant, sample import code will be provided to make it even easier for you to get started and to add functionality to your stream. So let's get started with the topic for this video. So to set this up in OBS, we just need to add a source of a browser type to all the scenes that we want to run the game in. So we're going to call it Champion of the Hill. And we copy that because we'll need that name in a moment in StreamerBot. The URL is about blank, which means it's going to be a blank browser source until we need to use it. The size, the full canvas size, 1920 by 1080. If you do have a different size, do set it to this and resize the browser source to accordingly. You'll probably want to control the audio via OBS, so do select that option. And be sure not to select the local file option here as well. Then underneath the advanced audio properties, for the Champion of the Hill, I suggest you use monitor only mute output option here. And then you can control the volume of this game to fit in with your stream levels. There are a few steps to set up for StreamerBot for the Champion of the Hill game. First, we'll start by copying the import code in the description below, going to the Actions tab, on the left hand side, right click, select Import, and paste the string in there. You're going to have 3 importable actions. It's also going to add in a queue for us, so only one game can be run at a time. So once we've imported those, we need to configure them. It's actually very simple to set these. The fight message doesn't need any changes. The set fight reward we'll need to point that at a reward we'll create in just a moment and change the text if you want there. To start fight, we need to point it at the browser source that we have in the bot. So we can select a scene and source that we have. The URL is already there in place. Again, set the scene and source. It doesn't matter if you have the browser source in multiple scenes, as long as you pick one, that'll update the browser source in all the scenes. So that's why we do it this way. Next, we'll need to create a channel point reward for this. We'll just call it Champion of the Hill for now. The first time we run it, it's going to change the winner. And then in the prompt, we want to be Champion of the Hill. Start this reward to have a chance to be the best. Be sure to join with !join after it's started. So this is going to kick off the game. Now, the cooldown, you might want to do something like 1 hour, 3,600, but for now we're just going to do 6 minutes. And that's going to then disable the reward. We can give a point amount to this. It's going to be appropriate for your stream. You could do a command on this with a cooldown as well, a global cooldown, if you wanted to run the game without channel points. But note, if you are doing that, we will need to change one of the actions. So that's going to start fight. Now I've got the channel point reward added. we can go into the set fight reward, and we need to point it at the reward here, Champion of the Hill. Because when they win, it's going to say the winner is the Champion of the Hill. Now these commands actually get triggered by the web page, and in the optional part later, I'm going to explain through the web page script and how that works. We won't be explaining through StreamerBots, that's why I'm doing it now. So start fight just enables a browser source, waits for the fight to be finished, and then disables that. Fight messages are used by it to just send messages to chat, and the reward is done at the end. And that's StreamerBot set up. And so now to test. We just trigger the reward. See the reward loading. And the battle begins. Now it takes 60 seconds to actually give people on chat an opportunity to join. Every 15 seconds there's a drum beat there to get the interest, to try to get people to join in. And you simply join in with that. It's going to pick a random side to put the avatar picture from that user and to jump in. So it's going to get the bot account to join in as well. It is limited 1 per person. So if you try and join in multiple times, it's going to ignore those and just take 1 entry per person. So once the first 60 seconds have passed, entries will be closed off, so you can't enter anymore, and it's going to signify that by the fight is coming to an end. Then, over a period of 10 seconds, the losers are going to be ejected out from the hill. Battle's going to die down, and we're going to celebrate the new champion of the hill. Now to the optional part of explaining how this all works. So we have a very basic HTML page, noting that we've got some credits in there. So it was inspired as a birthday gift, which is actually a pillow pile fight, so it's different. So do check out Ostrogothia for that. Thank you, Vilithia, for the artwork in this one. Really do appreciate it. The sounds from freesound.org are Creative Commons 0 license, so you don't need to attribute, but I feel it's fair in this case to attribute them, so that's where you can get hold of them. You can also edit them as well. We have a title which I've not updated, but doesn't really make a difference. We have a reference to an animation library, Tweemax. We have a container where all the work's being done, and we link to our script. We also have the grassy hill, which is obviously where the hill we're fighting over here. And we also have a style. So let's go to style first. So style here is doing very little. Setting no margins, full height, width. We are using a pillow pile element, which is for the grassy hill. So it centers it, puts it to the full width of the page. We are using the falling element here. So this is actually reusing some CSS from the Emote Rain and Visual Lurk code. And on to the meat of this. Again, referencing in NAS because it's where the main code is. We define the WebSocket we're connecting to. We have some variables here. So we're using multiple audio sources. Because we want to play multiple sounds at the same time, I've got effectively an array of audio sources that we'll use. We'll explain that in a moment. But function connect WS, so whenever we connected to the WebSockets, or trigger the connection to WebSockets through that function call, we put a request in to look for chat messages. Now this is so we can look for the joins. That's the important thing here. So we will get those, so when we get a response, we get the onMessage function fired, which then passes the event data. We pass that we check and look for join, and then we trigger the add fighter with the display name. So if someone does an exclamation mark join, it's triggering this function every time. And what we do in here is we get a lowercase version of that. We then create an XML HTTP request, and this is basically, once we've got the response, we'll run this function. And you'll see a bit further down here, this is where we actually send it. So we'll go down to this line in a moment. So when we get the response back, we log that. We then set a variable add to fight true, because we need to see if the user's already been added. So we'll check the document to see if we match attributes that's been defined as a user. And if it has already been added, we'll flag that variable to false. So we'll only do this extra work if the add to fight is true, so the default state, so we don't have more than one entry. We then get the container we're going to inject everything into, get the width and height of the window. We will then create a new object, a new div object. So that's going to basically be the viewer's object that we're going to manipulate through the fight. We're going to set the user as a name, so we can then search for duplicate later. We've got a state as well, whether it's alive or dead. And of course we start out alive. We increase the total number of divs, so we can give a unique div ID. The URL in the background is a response text, so this is going to be the request we send on XML HTTP. Further down here, go back down here again, is to get the avatar image location. So when we get the avatar image location, we're going to inject that back into here. Background of that, so it's going to fill the object size, which is 75 by 75. We're then going to create two random numbers. And one's going to be if we're going to be entering onto the hill from the left or right hand side. And the second one is going to be deciding which weapon. So there's math random times 2 plus 1. It's going to give us 1 or 2. So 1 is on one side and 2 is on the other side. And 7 is going to give us 7 different weapon choices. So we then look at the weapon choices, and then we'll put them on the correct side of the avatar. So the weapon's facing towards the hill itself. We add in the inner HTML, so this is what's contained within the object that we're moving around, so the object which is the player avatar. We're going to put another image there, but we're transforming it, rotating the weapon, moving it to a particular location so it fits into the correct location where you want the weapon to be. And if it doesn't match 1, it's going to be 2, it's the other side, and the weapon needs to be faced a different location. So we repeat that 7 times to know where that is. And then we look at, okay, I'm going from the left or the right. So we created this object, but we actually haven't set where it starts, and we haven't started where it's going to go. So with tweenlight.set on the div object, we can say this is the class of the object we want to actually finally add to the actual page. So we've created an object, but we've not assigned it anywhere yet. This is where we want to position it, so off the left hand side for case of 1. Otherwise we move on to the far right hand side in case of 2. And the height to fit in to work with the hill. And then we trigger an animation, which we'll look into in a moment, the animation left and animation right. And then we'll append that into the div. We also then set a timeout, so after 2 minutes, so it's 120,000 milliseconds, we're going to remove the element. We should be destroying the page after this anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem, but it's just good practice to clean up after ourselves. And as I said before, we get the avatar image and go from there. So these are the 2 animations that we use to place the avatars. So starting from that side, going up towards the pillow. So to Emacs, you use something got .2 with the element we're passing in, which is passed into the function. Taking 2 seconds, we want to get to the point of x, which is the inner width. So that's the full width of the page divided by 2 minus 45 because to offset it correctly. So we're going to go to the middle of the page. This is going to be the speed of the sine wave, easing in, easing out, and it's going to start straight away. We don't actually need the yo-yo true. That doesn't happen because we have no repeats. So we could remove the yo-yo true there. Then the y-axis, now that's a little bit different because we want it to climb up the hill. So with this, the first 0.9 seconds, because the delay here is 0, we want to go up to 200 pixels off the bottom because inner height starts at 0 and goes down. So we want to get up to 200 on this point. Again, yo-yo doesn't matter because of that there. Power 2 is a more, it's easing in, so it means it's going to increase slower at first and go up higher. So this curve actually fits the slope of the grassy hill. So at this point, and 0.9 seconds in, we want to do some random effect. I want it to jump up a random amount to dive into the fight and the hill. So for the next 0.6 seconds, so 0.6 seconds is the time taken, but we're delaying it for 0.9, so it starts after this one here. We want to go to the inner height minus, then 300, so it's another 100 pixels above in that time, plus a random amount. This randomizer function is a bit lower down. That takes in a minimum and maximum value and returns something within that range. So it's going to be between 450 pixels from the bottom or 650 pixels. Took me a moment there to work it out. So over that's 0.6 seconds, it's going to jump up a certain amount, and then we're going to jump into the hill itself for the next 0.5 seconds. And so the time taken for the first two ones, 0.9 and 0.6, is 1.5 seconds. Therefore, the delay for the third y-axis movement. And it's worthwhile noting these animations will be happening at the same time as the X animation here, which takes 2 seconds because 0.9 plus 0.6 plus 0.5 is 2 seconds. So it's going to go down to inner height minus 150, which is going to be near the bottom of the screen. So again, we've got a ease in and ease out to that, so it'll jump down in a particular manner. And that's going to put the fighter into position. We also have the animation right, which is the same animation here. But I left it separate just so we could control it differently should we want to. Next, we're going to actually jump to the bottom, and then we're going to see how this ties together to best explain things. So at the bottom, after all the functions are started, we're going to trigger off the connect WS. We're going to set timeouts. So these are times after 1 second, 16 seconds, 31, 46, 51, and 56 seconds. We're going to do a notify message to say how many seconds are left in the fight and how to join the fight. So this is basically going to tell StreamerBot I want to you to send a message to chat for me. After that time, we call a ws.close, which is going to stop the connection to the bot. Now, it will re-establish it to declare the winner, but we need to close that connection. Otherwise, someone could join the fight mid-fight and it wouldn't be fair. It may also break it. We have a start fight, a horn sound near the end, and we have a battle sound that starts as well. And finally, we have a loop. So this goes through this loop 28 times or so. And with the delay we add up here, we're going to call random weapon. The random weapon is the weapons you see fly out from the pillar pile as the fight's going on. So let's piece that together from here. Random weapon, we just talked about this. So we get the container as before, height and width again, creating in elements. So it's a very similar method to adding the fighter. Again, random number of 7. And depending on the result, we set the weapon image and set the background size to that. So instead of having the user's avatar, in this case as an image, we're setting a weapon. Again, we append it to the actual div itself, to another random, whether we spin it to the left or the right. This time rotation, so it's going to spin the element, either rotating clockwise to 180, or on the other environment if random is not 1, the other way. And we're going to throwing it to the inner width, so it's twice the width, so we're trying to throw it really far away. And it's going to take 7 seconds to do that. Or so we're either going left or right, depending here. And again, the Y, we've got some random elements, so it throws it in different directions. And the ease is back to ease out. So you can search for these easing for the tween max libraries, or GSAP is the library name you're looking for. But we're setting the path. So we're adding it in, setting the path, and doing some cleaning up as well. And on to the next function called yeet. So this pretty much does what you expect it to. It will get the ID, it'll find that object to be the element. It's going to get a random position on the X axis and another random number, rotation of that as well. So if we get a rotation there, we're going to be moving things, spinning to one side and off to one side and spinning the other, much like before. And what's going to happen here, again setting the animation, because it's already been injected, the element we have, we're going to do rotation of rotation Z, which is set up here or here. The Y is always going to be the same level for the first 4 seconds, and then we're going to drop it down on the Y, so it's going to simulate a bit like gravity is the theory there. And the X is going to be the X value that's either set here up by -1. So X is in width times 2 or times 5, so it's going to be a varying amount of really far away from the screen. So we can actually do a randomization to control the speed, because we know there's a certain amount of time to take to move to those locations. And so that yeet is something which is going to be done later on. Lose sound, which is triggered by this. So the yeet is basically a viewer's character when they get basically in a lost state. The lose sound is going to get a random one of 14 entries, and it's going to play back the yeet plus a random number .mp3, setting the volume level and playing that. Now we're doing this through audio and sound play. The sound play is going to be a variable we set at the top of the script, so we can reuse objects. So it's going to go through sound play. If it's greater than 9, so it gets to 10, we're going to set it back to 0. So we're reusing those objects. So I think we've got certain like 10 tracks or so we can use. And since we played a sound on that current track, we're setting it to the next track, which means that we don't use the same track over and over. Winner time, we have the cheer. We play that. We do the volume. Again, sound play there just to be clean. We get the element by ID, so the winner is the ID passed in there. So this is the winning person's avatar image, div element. And we're going to move it up on top of the pillar pile, and we're going to make sure it's in the right Z index as well. We've got a remove element. This is the cleanup code we've talked about before. Got a set winner. Set winner is going to send and do action to set fight reward, and the message is going to be what's passed in, which is actually going to be the winner's name. Start fight. So this is at the end of the 61 or 62 seconds after we actually start the web page. So this means we've disconnected any new people to join. So we're going to re-establish the WebSocket. We're not going to subscribe to any messages, so if we do reopen it, it's okay, because it won't pick up on messages to do the join to re-add, because that function's being closed off at that point. If we have no winner, what's going to happen here? We have no champion of the hill is the default. So if we've got no div number, so no users there, we send a notify message to send a message in chat to say no one's joined, so there's no, the champion of the hill. Otherwise, we get that attribute from the element that's left from the ID. And we need to -1 by the way that the numbers have done. And we notify the champion of the hill. Set a timeout message to do that in the time, because we need to wait. Once we've started the fight, we need to decide at this point who's won. And then we want to say, okay, when that's all finished, we want to notify chat at the right time. So that's why we do the set timeout on the message here, which is notify function again. Then for the yeet user, yeet time, yeet ID, we go through each of the other div elements we have, because we counted them up. Then we get those objects as a yeet user. If they're not the winner, get the yeet time. So we divide. So what's happening here is we get the amount of time, which is 10 seconds to go through the fight, divided by the total number of people, and then we set a timeout on the yeet command for that user ID and the amount of time. So that means over 10 seconds we're going to yeet every single person that's basically lost. So we split it up. So whether it's 2 people fighting to be the champion of the hill or 200, it's going to then split that up between those 10 seconds to make it a sort of better experience. Then we build up the winner command and passing into the command who's the winner, and again appropriate time for that, and a set winner as well. Notify is purely sending a message to the do action WebSocket call with the fight message and passing it in there. So this calls a fight message action in the StreamerBot through WebSockets. This is a randomizer where it basically looks at the min value plus the random amount of the max minus the min. The battle sound we trigger near the start. That's the battle.mp3 that I've mixed together with Creative Commons tracks. So again, if you want your own tracks, you can potentially download all these files and to make them yourself. Again, we've got the multi-track function on there. We also have a horn sound to play the horn near the end as well. And there we go, a full explanation of how the Champion of the Hill code works. Please like and subscribe to be notified of more videos like this. If there's a topic you'd like covered, please do let me know in the comments or on Discord. Check out my Twitch stream to see the bot in action and for other examples. The links to my Twitch, social media and to StreamerBot can be found at vrflad.com. Additional links to others that provide StreamerBot content can be also found in the description. Finally, thank you Nate for making a great bot, and please consider supporting his Patreon, which is linked from streamer.bot.